the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty.
Prince William had protected his father's reputation through grief, scandal, and one of the most difficult royal transitions in modern memory. But behind that silence was a betrayal he could no longer carry. In a private gathering at Windsor, the future king finally revealed that Charles had hidden a sealed letter written for him by Queen Elizabeth II, and had kept it from William until the coronation was safely over. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William did not speak through rumor. He broke his silence in a documented account prepared after a closed family meeting at Windsor Castle, the residence where the monarch conducts official business. The prince said the letter reached Charles before the coronation, the ceremony in which a sovereign is formally crowned, with instructions that it be handed to him immediately. The accusation landed with brutal force. William placed the delivery record on the table and admitted he had spent years believing his grandmother left him no final guidance. His voice stayed calm, yet his fingers tightened around the page. He was confronting a father who had watched him grieve while knowing the truth. Charles did not deny receiving the envelope. The king lowered his eyes, removed his glasses, and set them beside the papers. Silence filled the room. The letter was not a keepsake, but an instruction about the bond between the sovereign and the heir, meaning the monarch and the person next in line to the throne. William then revealed the warning inside Elizabeth's words. She had cautioned Charles against allowing advisors, loyalties, or fear of being overshadowed to separate him from his son. She also requested that the future king attend a confidential briefing on the monarchy's next chapter before the coronation. That meeting could have shaped access, influence, and trust at the top. The timing exposed everything. Charles allowed the envelope to reach William only on the morning after the coronation, when the crown was on his head and every disputed decision surrounding the ceremony had become almost impossible to reverse. William made clear that the delay was deliberate, not accidental. Then came the detail that changed the room. Elizabeth's letter contained a request about who should stand closest to Charles before he entered Westminster Abbey, the church where coronations are held. That request threatened more than ceremony. It threatened the balance of power around the new king. But to understand why Charles truly feared that letter, the people gathered around the crown, and what each of them secretly stood to lose, must first be brought fully into the harsh, unforgiving light. This was never merely a dispute over an envelope. It was the collapse of an unspoken agreement between a father desperate to establish his authority and a son trained from birth to protect the institution above his own pain. Between them stood Queen Elizabeth's memory, Camilla's uncertain position, and a coronation designed to declare unity, even as the two men at the monarchy's center were quietly being pulled apart. William felt the loss from every direction. Within months, he had lost his grandmother and inherited the title of Prince of Wales, the formal position traditionally held by the person first in line to the British throne. He was no longer simply the grandson who could seek Elizabeth's private advice. The future king now carried responsibility for Catherine, their children, and the monarchy that would one day become his. Charles carried a different burden. The king had waited most of his life for the crown, yet his first days as monarch remained trapped beneath comparisons to his mother. Every decision was measured against Elizabeth's long reign. Every appearance beside William encouraged whispers that the younger man already represented the future more confidently than his father represented the present. William finally admitted the depth of that wound during a quiet conversation with Catherine at Adelaide Cottage. The home offered privacy away from the larger royal residences, but even there the pressure followed him. He told the princess that the contents of the letter were not what hurt most. The concealment did. Charles had looked at his own son before the most important ceremony of their lives, and decided he could not be trusted. Catherine listened as the prince struggled to control his anger. She reminded him that grief had changed both men, but William could not escape one brutal conclusion. His father had protected the coronation from him, instead of preparing for it with him. That realization made the silence feel personal. Charles gave Camilla a different explanation. The coronation, he insisted, had to belong to the new reign. He could not allow Elizabeth's final wishes to dictate every decision after her death. Yet the queen consort heard the guilt beneath his frustration. She had seen the sealed envelope resting on his desk. She knew William's name was connected to it, but she chose not to ask what it contained. Anne sensed the danger before anyone spoke openly. The Princess Royal had noticed William's absence from two confidential pre-coronation discussions, meaning private meetings where the final roles and responsibilities were being settled. She warned Charles that excluding the heir might protect his authority for one day, but it could damage their relationship for years. Then one meeting changed everything. Late at night inside Clarence's house, William arrived expecting to join the final coronation conference. Minutes later, he was told to leave, and it was inside that closed meeting that royal tension became deliberate concealment. 3 weeks before the coronation, William arrived at Clarence's house expecting to join his father for a final discussion about the future of the monarchy. Instead, an aide met him outside the library and said the meeting had changed. William watched the door close without him. Inside, Charles held Elizabeth's sealed letter in one hand and faced the exact warning his mother had left behind about shutting the heir out. The evening of April 14 became the point of no return. Charles had called a confidential coronation meeting, meaning a private discussion about the ceremony and the first decisions of the new reign. Camilla and two senior advisors were already inside. William believed he would help shape what came next, but the king had quietly decided that his son might remain outside the central weekly briefings for an entire year. William did not argue when the aide delivered the order. The prince paused in the corridor, heard chairs moving behind the closed door, and waited for someone to call him back. No one did. He walked away with his anger buried beneath discipline, yet the humiliation stayed with him, because the meeting concerned the future he would one day inherit. Charles felt the pressure tighten as soon as the room settled. The king opened Elizabeth's letter and read the instruction he had feared. His mother wanted William brought into the crown's inner discussions immediately. The crown's inner circle meant the small group trusted with the monarch's most sensitive decisions, and the queen's message made clear that excluding the heir would create suspicion, distance, and lasting damage. Camilla watched his expression change. The queen consort knew the envelope concerned William, but she still did not know the full warning. Charles folded the page slowly, then refused to recall his son. His silence told her that this was no longer about scheduling, it was about control. The decision came quickly. Charles placed the letter inside a red dispatch box, a locked case used to carry the monarch's official and private papers, and instructed his private secretary not to release it until after the coronation. The order turned hesitation into concealment. Then the king gave the explanation that exposed everything. William, he said, was not yet ready to enter every room. Yet the words carried fear, not certainty. Charles was not protecting his son from responsibility. He was protecting his own authority from a future king, whose presence already changed the balance around him. Anne sensed the truth as the meeting ended. The Princess Royal saw the dispatch box removed through a side corridor, and noticed the strain across her brother's face. She said nothing, but she understood that something personal had been buried inside that locked case. Weeks later, William would discover exactly what happened behind that door. And when father and son finally met without advisors, every restrained emotion would erupt. The confrontation did not begin with shouting. It began with William placing the late Queen's letter between himself and his father. No aides stood behind them. No courtiers could soften the language. Charles stared at his mother's handwriting while his son asked one devastating question. How could the king allow William to stand beside him throughout the coronation, knowing that the final instruction meant for him remained locked away? William had requested the meeting after confirming the truth through palace delivery records. The prince arrived in Charles's private sitting room at Windsor, carrying the original envelope, the dated receipt, and Elizabeth's handwritten instruction. The Prince of Wales was the title held by the person first in line to the throne, and the message clearly ordered that the letter be delivered to him without delay. William placed each document in front of his father. Then he spoke with a calmness that made the accusation cut deeper. "You let me walk beside you without knowing." The future king reminded Charles that they had attended rehearsals, services, and private discussions together, while the truth remained hidden. His father had accepted his loyalty while denying him the guidance Elizabeth had intended him to receive. Charles reached for the explanation he had repeated to himself for weeks. The king argued that the country needed stability, and that the letter could have complicated the final preparations. The coronation was the formal ceremony in which a monarch is crowned, and every decision around it carried national weight. He insisted that delay had protected the institution. William rejected that defense immediately. Stability built on deception, he said, was never stability. The prince told his father that the secrecy had not protected the crown. It had protected one man from a difficult conversation. Charles looked down as the final instruction was read aloud. Elizabeth had ordered him to include William in the last coronation briefing, and allow his son to challenge any decision that might weaken the bond between sovereign and heir. The sovereign was the reigning monarch. The heir was the person expected to inherit the throne. Her warning had been direct, personal, and impossible to misunderstand. The truth finally broke through. Charles admitted that William's presence frightened him. The king had waited a lifetime to be seen as monarch, yet he feared that standing beside a younger, more popular future king would make his reign appear temporary before it had truly begun. William absorbed the confession without triumph. It was not victory. It was confirmation that fear had shaped the most important decision between them. Charles asked that the matter remain private. William pushed back his chair and stood. Silence, he said, had already protected the decision for too long. Yet his refusal threatened more than his father's pride. It exposed everyone who had helped keep the truth contained. A king may issue an instruction, but secrecy survives only when others agree to protect it. The hidden letter passed through offices, hands, and locked rooms without reaching the man whose name was written across the envelope. As William traced that path, he discovered that Charles had not acted in complete isolation. Several people had seen enough to question the delay, and each had chosen loyalty to the reigning monarch over honesty with the heir. William began with the paper trail. The prince learned that the envelope entered the royal household through Charles's private secretary, was formally logged, then placed inside a dispatch box before being moved from Clarence House to Buckingham Palace. A dispatch box was a secure case used to carry sensitive royal papers, and every movement should have left a record. Charles had the authority to delay delivery, but he did not control every document alone. Senior staff recorded when the letter arrived, who handled it, and where it was stored. That mattered, because the secret depended not only on the king's decision, but on several people choosing not to challenge it. William met one longtime aide in private. The courtier admitted that Elizabeth had written personal and immediate across the outer covering, yet he still followed Charles's instruction. The prince listened without anger, but his disappointment was unmistakable. The aide had served the family for years, and now understood that obedience had helped deepen a wound between father and son. Anne refused to soften the truth. The Princess Royal entered Charles's study, closed the door, and told her brother that loyalty did not mean protecting him from the consequences of fear. She reminded the king that staff had followed his order because of his position, not because the decision was right. Camilla then clarified what she knew. The queen consort confirmed that an envelope meant for William had been retained, but Charles told her it contained emotional material that could distract both men before the ceremony. She accepted that explanation. Now, faced with the damage, she understood that her silence had given the delay room to survive. The records exposed the final connection. Household schedules showed that William was removed from the April 14 briefing only after Charles read Elizabeth's letter. The timing destroyed any claim that the two decisions were unrelated. The exclusion had been deliberate. William did not demand resignations. Instead, the future king requested every coronation communication containing his name, including meeting notes, delivery logs, and internal instructions. His calm approach unsettled the palace more than anger would have. The documents revealed no dramatic conspiracy. They revealed something colder, a pattern of exclusion that had quietly reshaped trust inside the monarchy. Once the secret was acknowledged, the palace did not explode. It froze. Conversations shortened when William entered rooms. Charles began canceling private meetings. Camilla found herself carrying knowledge she wished she had challenged, while aides who had once treated the delayed letter as a harmless instruction now understood that they had helped damage the relationship on which the monarchy's future depended. William acted first. The prince withdrew from 2 joint strategy meetings with Charles and made clear that normal cooperation would not resume until the rules around access, private correspondence, and decision-making were changed. Those meetings shaped the monarchy's public direction, so his absence was more than a personal protest. It warned the household that the bond between sovereign and heir had become dangerously unstable. Anne refused to let the matter disappear into private regret. The Princess Royal requested a formal review of how Elizabeth's personal correspondence had been handled during the transition. A formal review was an internal examination of records, decisions, and responsibility. She wanted safeguards that would prevent one person, even the monarch, from delaying a message addressed directly to another member of the family. Charles felt the consequences after William left Windsor. The king remained alone beside an untouched tea tray and read his mother's warning again. He pressed the page flat with both hands, as though the gesture could undo the closed meeting, the delayed envelope, and the moment his son realized that fear had mattered more than trust. Camilla carried her own guilt into the corridor. The queen consort approached William and admitted that she should have asked why the letter was being withheld. She said Charles had presented the delay as protection from emotional pressure. The future king listened, then answered with painful calm. Remaining silent had also been a decision. Camilla had no defense against that. Then the archive produced something no one expected. Staff examining the correspondence file discovered a separate final page, addressed jointly to Charles and William. The Royal Correspondence Archive was the protected collection where official and personal documents were preserved. Elizabeth had intended that page to be read by father and son together before the coronation. The message contained no political command. It asked them to enter the new reign as partners, and warned that private resentment would eventually become public weakness. The tragedy was immediate. The page had predicted the exact damage Charles created by hiding it. Charles sent the recovered message to William without explanation. Hours later, the prince received a handwritten note asking to meet somewhere without staff, titles, or official papers. For the first time since the truth emerged, they would meet not as sovereign and heir, but as a father and the son he had wounded. There were no red boxes, uniforms, advisors, or prepared statements when William arrived. Charles had chosen a small room at Highgrove, where family photographs mattered more than royal symbols. On the table lay the final page from Elizabeth's letter. The king did not ask William to forgive him. Instead, he admitted that after waiting a lifetime for the crown, he had been terrified that his own son's strength would make his reign feel smaller. Charles had removed every institutional barrier before the meeting began. The king and William left their phones, official papers, and private staff outside, ensuring no aide could interrupt or reshape what was said. Highgrove was his private country home, and for once the conversation would not belong to the monarchy. It would belong to a father and son. William sat opposite him as they read Elizabeth's final page together. The late queen had written that the crown survived through continuity, meaning one generation preparing the next rather than competing with it. She warned that authority weakened when a monarch treated the heir as a threat instead of a partner. Charles did not hide behind ceremony. He admitted that William's confidence, public respect, and young family had stirred fears he was ashamed to name during the coronation preparations. The future king represented energy, stability, and the years ahead. His father feared that every comparison would make his own reign appear brief before it had properly begun. William listened, but he did not soften the truth. The prince said he could have accepted disagreement. He could even have accepted being excluded from one meeting. What he could not accept was being denied his grandmother's final words, while he was expected to stand beside Charles and demonstrate absolute loyalty. Charles then removed his signet ring and placed it beside the letter. A signet ring was a personal symbol of royal identity and authority. The king said he did not want rank to protect him from answering honestly. For that moment, he was not asking obedience from an heir. He was asking understanding from his son. William did not offer instant forgiveness. Instead, father and son reached a new agreement. The prince would attend future strategic briefings, receive all correspondence addressed directly to him, and be allowed to challenge decisions privately without being treated as disloyal. The final choice belonged to William. He decided he would speak publicly about the secret, but not to humiliate Charles. His documented statement would explain what silence had cost them and why the monarchy had to change. When those carefully chosen words reached the nation, one quiet image outside Buckingham Palace captured the wound and the hope more powerfully than any official response. By sunrise, the family's private wound had become a national reckoning. William's statement did not accuse his father of cruelty, nor did it call for punishment. It described a failure of trust and declared that the future monarchy could not survive through concealed instructions and closed doors. Across Britain, the story was no longer only about a letter. It became a debate over fathers, sons, grief, power, and the cost of avoiding difficult truth. William released the statement through a documented account approved by his private office. The prince confirmed that Elizabeth's final letter had been withheld until after the coronation, and said the experience forced the family to reconsider how the sovereign and heir communicated. The sovereign was the reigning monarch, while the heir was the person expected to inherit the throne. That relationship mattered because a monarchy could not promise continuity while its two central figures distrusted one another. Buckingham Palace responded within hours. The royal household acknowledged the delay, accepted that the letter should have reached William earlier, and announced new protections for personally addressed correspondence. Those rules meant that a message intended for one royal could no longer be quietly retained by another office, without a written record and formal explanation. Charles heard the statement during the morning broadcast. The king sat alone as the presenter read William's words slowly and without drama. He did not turn off the television when the delay was described. He waited until his son's final sentence. Forgiveness requires truth. Only then did the monarch end the broadcast, knowing that the country had heard the sentence meant for him. William faced a different kind of shock. Catherine brought him messages from people who described broken relationships with parents, children, and siblings. The princess reminded him that the disclosure had escaped the palace walls. The future king had spoken about royal power, but ordinary families heard something painfully familiar: the damage caused when love exists without honesty. Then one public gesture captured everything. Outside Buckingham Palace, a woman placed 2 white roses beneath the gates. One carried the word father, the other carried son. Cameras caught the flowers resting together, and the image spread across the country before any official photograph could replace it. A major newspaper delivered the defining headline the next morning. Beneath a photograph of Charles and William walking apart after the coronation were 4 words: the letter between them. The story no longer invited anger alone. It invited judgment. Sympathy slowly moved toward reconciliation rather than revenge. Yet that mercy carried a demand. Charles and William now had to prove that their private agreement had changed the monarchy itself. The final verdict would not come from headlines, courtiers, or crowds, but from what father and son chose to do after the noise faded. The hidden letter could not be returned to the moment when it belonged. Elizabeth's words could not enter the coronation room, and William could not recover the final hours of guidance he had been denied. But the truth achieved something silence never could. It forced a king to acknowledge the fear beneath his authority, allowed a son to speak without destroying his father, and ended a royal pattern in which pain was buried, simply because honesty appeared dangerous. Charles acted first. The king formally changed royal household procedure, so that personal correspondence addressed to the heir could never again be withheld by the sovereign's office without written notification. The sovereign's office was the private administrative team serving the reigning monarch, and the new rule mattered because no future disagreement could be hidden behind silence, rank, or an undocumented command. William also returned to the center of decision-making. The prince joined his father's strategic briefings as a permanent participant, not as a rival monarch waiting to replace him, but as the man responsible for carrying continuity into the next reign. His presence no longer represented a threat, it represented preparation. Charles faced his son one final time in private. The king did not blame advisors, pressure, grief, or the chaos surrounding the coronation. He did not soften the truth with royal language. He looked at William and said, "I made the decision, and it was wrong." Those words could not erase the betrayal, but they finally placed responsibility where it belonged. William accepted the apology without pretending the wound had vanished. The future king told his father that trust would not return through one emotional conversation. It would return through repeated honesty, difficult meetings, and the courage to speak before resentment became silence. Camilla acknowledged her part as well. The queen consort admitted that protecting Charles from discomfort had contributed to the damage. Anne accepted a different responsibility. The Princess Royal became the trusted family figure who would ensure that serious concerns reached both men directly, even when neither wanted to hear them. Charles and William then read Elizabeth's shared final page one last time. Together, they placed it in the royal archives, the protected collection where the monarchy preserves its most important records, with a written instruction that the letter's full history, including the delay, must never be concealed. The secret did not prove that betrayal had destroyed the monarchy. It proved something more important. The institution became endangered whenever fear grew stronger than trust, and it became stronger when truth was finally allowed into the room. Charles and William left the archive side by side. The letter remained behind them. not as evidence of a family permanently broken, but as the final record of the silence they chose never to repeat. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.